Joining us with a closer look on what's playing itself out on the market scene at middays, Andrew Padoa from Sasfin Wealth. Andrew, a pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Nolu. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for chatting to us. Yes, let's go ahead. You go ahead.
No, like you said, today is mainly in the red. We're down 0.5% on the JSE roughly. Not a lot of places to hide. And some of the miners are holding up relatively well, as you've already mentioned. Of the bigger stocks on the JSE, it's really just Anglos and Glencore up today. And as you've highlighted, a couple of results or trading statements from the likes of Exxaro, Grindrod, and Trelidor.
Of course, I must ask you, I think yesterday was a strong day on the JSE. We're not seeing markets finding that footing today. Andrew, anything driving these sentiments? Or is it just the continued volatility that we have seen since the start of the year?
Yeah, I think it's that. We also had Jerome Powell last night talking in the US, and he's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. So his team make the interest rate decisions in the US. He said it's likely US interest rates have peaked and that they'll bring them down at some point in the year. But it's just a matter of when. Inflation rates in the US now at 3.1%. In South Africa, we're at 5.3%. So US inflation higher than normal. South Africa, we're kind of in the band. So inflation, I think, is a big driver of markets the last 24 hours as well as year to date.
Another interesting development from yesterday, Andrew, keen to get your thoughts on this one today, is gold reaching new highs. Of course, this is exactly what often happens in a world where market participants are feeling a little bit jittery.
Yeah, correct. So we're over $2,100 an ounce, close to all-time highs. Look, global growth is slowing, and we've seen rising geopolitical tensions around the world. We've got Russia, Ukraine, we've got what's going on in Israel, we've got China, Taiwan. So there's a lot going on, a lot of geopolitical tensions, and this is a good environment for gold to perform. So gold is effectively seen as a hedge against all these risks, and it's likely the reason why we're seeing gold moving higher.
And then let's also touch on the oil price, of course, also enjoying some level of volatility there. We're sitting at around $82 a barrel. All of that in anticipation of this global growth. I'm wondering, Andrew, how it all plays into a cohesive story.
Yeah, so you're right. Gold, $83 a barrel roughly at the moment, still nowhere near where it was when Russia invaded Ukraine. It spiked to $120 at that point. But I think as South Africans, higher oil prices, it's not good for South Africa. We don't really manufacture anything anymore. We import a lot of goods. So higher oil prices means it's just going to cost us more to bring those goods into the country. And this means it's going to be difficult to bring inflation down. So we really need to cross our fingers that oil price can behave and that the rand doesn't blow up against the dollar. There's a lot of talk about interest rates being cut at some point later in the year in South Africa, but that'll be difficult to do if oil price goes up and if the rand weakens substantially.
And moving into some company news now, maybe starting off with Exxaro Resources warning of a profit slump there. Of course, this is a business that has in the past really managed to, brave storms better than what we're seeing now. But it looks like there is just trouble there with that coal price and how sharp it did fall.
Yeah, I think this is the challenge with investing in miners. They are very, very cyclical. Miners are either doing really well or really badly. There's no real in between. I know at Sasfin we favor Billiton. They're a widely diversified miner, well-run, a low-cost producer, but we do try to keep mining exposure low due to the volatility associated with them. They just don't have pricing power. They dig the metal out of the ground and sell it, and the price of that good that they sell, it's not in their control. If we compare that to the likes of a Louis Vuitton, they choose the price of the handbag that they're selling. They have pricing power. So, I would rather be focusing on companies that have pricing power.
Absolutely, I hear that. Let's also touch on Trelidor. This is a company that also battled for a while, but you know what? They're reporting a 7% rise in revenues. Headline earnings still falling sharply, but I think it does speak of a story that could turn around should we just see a better cost environment.
Yeah, correct, Nali. Like you said, revenue up, but earnings down double digits, and it's those high debt levels combined with higher interest rates. That's a challenge for them. They're not paying the dividend. They need to, improve the balance sheets. And I think this is a key thing that investors need to address, especially overseas. If you relied on debt to grow, interest rates were zero. It was very easy to grow. But if you're relying on debt and now interest rates in the States are 5, it's a very different game. Imagine having a home loan and your rate is 0.25%, and you now need to refinance it at 5%. Sure. Very, very different game. So companies need to be very careful if they have debt on their balance sheets and when they need to refinance.
It really is one of those periods, Andrew, that I think many are anticipating will pass as soon as possible. Let's touch on Grindrod. Here's a company that seems to have done super well. I think they're at the right place at the right time, and they really are capitalizing on all the things going wrong here in South Africa in our logistics sector, but also the growth that we are seeing on the continent.
Yeah, there were quite a bit of noise in those results, but good results from the ports and terminals business. Headline earnings grew 35%. I also saw the port of Maputo. They had record volumes at that port as well. So yeah, good set of results.
And then I think let's move into your stock pick actually, but before then, let's reflect on counters that have found favor with your industry peers.
Today I'm going to go with Afrocentric. This is more of a long-term pick, I must warn you. Earlier in the week, they released their interim results, which were relatively flat. And the last year hasn't been really great for them. But they have got a strategic shareholding now with Sanlam, who will obviously then try to cross-sell Afrocentric's medical aid product into their existing client database. And we believe that this relationship is strategic. So that cross-sell of the product into the Sanlam client base will make a big difference for a company like Afrocentric. But as I mentioned, it's not going to materialize quickly. So it's more of a long-term pick.
Hopefully the commodities are towards the end of their cycle. Sasol just looks very, very cheap. They can earn in decent conditions 40 Rand a share, and its share price 150. The share price has been battered. I think it's a good turnaround commodity upcycle story.
I'm buying more semiconductors. I like TSM, which is Taiwan Semiconductor. And, it came under pressure because of worries about China invading Taiwan and that. But they now, with everybody buying semiconductors, they're the people that actually make them, that print them. You design them and TSM makes them. It's called a foundry or manufacturer. I don't know what the word is. But 20% per annum for the next couple of years, I can live with that. Earnings growth. Yeah. Good business. Chart looks good.
All right, Andrew, keen to get your thoughts on some of those counters. We have Afrocentric, Sasol, and TSM.
Sure. So Afrocentric, not really a business I know very well, but I do like the fact that it's a contrarian pick and that your guest said that it is a long-term play. On Sasol, so Sasol, not for me. I suppose it's more someone who's looking for a shorter-term trade. So maybe buying it now and selling it at 200 Rand or 220 Rand. I would rather hold a quality company that can compound over the long term. So I'm more inclined with my colleague David Shapiro's pick with TSMC.
And with that said, which counter are you loving today?
Sure. So my stock pick today is Thermo Fisher. So Thermo Fisher, the pharmaceutical companies such as Pfizer and Moderna made huge amounts of money during the pandemic, and they're now heavily investing into research and development to come up with new drugs and new vaccines. The pharmaceutical companies normally spend between 10 and 25% of revenue back into R&D. Now, we don't know if these new drugs and new vaccines will work, but what we do know is that they'll be buying equipment from the likes of Thermo Fisher. Someone said to me that it wasn't the miners that made the most amounts of money during the mining boom. It was rather the people selling the picks and shovels to the mines. So Thermo Fisher is effectively the picks and shovels to the pharmaceutical industry.
Well, Andrew, it's been a pleasure having you on Business Lunch this afternoon. Thank you for chatting to us. That was your stock picks this midday time with Andrew Padoa from Sasfin Wealth.